Blood soaked the steering wheel. My vision began to blur, and his voicemail rang for the 10th time. That was my last call memory. Now, as I sip aged Merlot, I watch the anxious emergency alert flashing on my phone screen. I didn't save Tristan this time. Let his carefully crafted karma consume him. Crystal resonated with crystal. A clear, crisp chime sliced through the thick, suffocating fog in my mind. The sound was sharp, grounding, and utterly out of place. I blinked, my vision swimming in the dim amber light and deep, rich hues of the familiar room, scented with mahogany, the aroma of aged oak, dark cherry, and expensive perfume flooded my lungs. The coppery blood and metallic stench of leaking gasoline that had choked me moments ago were suddenly replaced by an overpowering scent. My hands trembled all over. I looked down at my fingers, expecting them to be mangled, bloodied, and torn by shards of tempered windshield. Instead, my skin was flawless, impeccably manicured, elegantly wrapped around the stem of a delicate wine glass. I drew a sharp breath, my throat tight as if something were lodged there, my gaze fixed dully on the swirling dark liquid inside. I was alive. It was that simple. Just seconds ago, or what felt like a distant past. I lay dying beside Interstate 95, my SUV crushed beneath a jackknifed semi-truck. Freezing rain pelted my skin as I was trapped in the wreckage, my spine broken, struggling to breathe. Superficial, I had driven into that blinding storm because Tristan called, his voice trembling with feigned fear. He pleaded with me to immediately deliver the encrypted company ledgers and offshore bearer bonds to his penthouse downtown. He claimed that some unscrupulous investors had caught wind of the discrepancies and threatened to turn him over to federal authorities by morning if he didn't produce physical collateral. Like a loyal and foolish wife, I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the leather briefcase from the hidden safe at home, threw on a robe over my pajamas, and sped into the storm. When the truck hit, the impact sent my phone flying from the dashboard, landing near my ear. The call was still connected, as my lifeblood dripped onto the floor mat. Tristan's panicked voice miraculously vanished. Through the speaker, I heard the crisp pop of a champagne cork, then a woman's laughter. Camilla's laughter, I asked the idiot on her way. Tristan asked, his voice smooth, relaxed, yet dripping with malice. She found it amusing. She believed the investor story. Camilla giggled, the sound muffled as if her face was buried in his chest. You're so clever. Darling, once she hands the bag to the concierge, you take it and we fly to Zurich while she's left holding the bag for the shell company. Her blind loyalty. Cam, it's pathetic, really, but good for us. Those were the last words I heard before the cold set in. Darkness swallowed me. The raw betrayal cut deeper than the agony of my shattered ribs and punctured lung. I had built Vanguard Logistics from the ground up and negotiated contracts, managed the fleet, balanced the books. Tristan was nothing but a charming front, a charismatic yet cold-blooded sociopath to whom I had foolishly given my heart and my proxy vote. A violent vibration from the oak table jolted me back to the present. My smartphone was sliding off the tabletop. The screen blazed with a harsh light from an incoming call. The caller ID read, Tristan, urgent. I stared at the screen, my heart pounding. Pain shot through my ribs like a trapped bird. I glanced at the top corner of the display. 8:45 p.m., November 14th. The date and time matched perfectly. In that instant, I was pulled back through threads of time, falling precisely into the moment I had destroyed my own life. Valerie! A voice came from across the table, laced with a hint of mockery. I looked up. Sabrina was watching me, her perfect brows slightly arched, a faint, almost imperceptible smile playing at the corners of her lips. Beside her, Dominic was carefully examining the label of the 2012 Chateau Margaux we just opened. I hadn't even realized the seismic shift happening in my mind. We were in the basement, a private lounge reserved for members only, just a few blocks from my home. In my past life, I had canceled this dinner midway, apologizing profusely. I'd rushed out to save my husband. You're staring at your phone like it just threatened to kill you, Sabrina said, taking a delicate sip of her wine. I asked Tristan, throwing another tantrum, because he can't figure out how to reset the Wi-Fi router. The phone continued to buzz, slowly rotating on the table. The urgency in its electronic vibration was palpable. In his penthouse on the other side of the city, Tristan had been waiting for me to answer, so he could weave his intricate web of lies. He'd been waiting to push me toward my death, so he could use my money to run away. A cold smile slowly spread across my face. The absurdity of the scene before me stunned me, and the lingering trauma was replaced by a deep, intoxicating sensation. Power. I was no longer the fearful, loyal wife. I was a ghost returning from the scene of a highway crash. No, I said, my voice surprisingly calm, free of the constant anxiety that had plagued me every moment before. Tristan finally realized a snap of his fingers wouldn't stop the world. I reached out, my perfectly manicured index finger hovering over the glowing green button. Then, deliberately, with immense satisfaction, I swiped it, dragging it into the red zone. The call was declined. To be absolutely sure, I opened his contact list, tapped settings, and selected block caller. I did the same for the other contacts. Home security system alerts. His personal assistant's number. I powered off the phone entirely, turning its screen into a black mirror, then slid it face down onto the mahogany table. Dominic said, looking at the mirror, lifting the wine bottle, and whistling sharply. That's a decisive move. Trouble in paradise, and it's fallen, I replied, picking up my glass. The heavy crystal felt like a weapon, a beautiful, fragile anchor tethering me to this new reality. Tonight, I wanted only to savor the ashes. I took a sip of the Margaux. It was magnificent, rich, complex, with a long, lingering finish. I leaned back into the soft leather booth, letting the warm air of the lounge seep into my bones. Outside, the first thunder rumbled. The deadly storm that was meant to kill me was approaching. Rain. I thought, let the storm rage. I was right here. It had to be this way. And I stood still. I swirled the ruby liquid in my glass, watching the storm rage on. The wind and rain lashed violently against the reinforced floor-to-ceiling windows of the lounge. Rain lashed against the glass like a furious curtain, warping the view of the street. Streetlights became smeared neon bars. It was in that chaotic downpour that my previous life had ended, sitting snugly indoors. The air was thick with the scent of roasted garlic, aged cheese, and expensive wine. The contrast was almost giddy. You're in a strange mood tonight. Val, Sabrina said, slicing a piece of brie and carefully placing it on a water cracker. Usually, when Tristan calls, you look like a negotiator prepping for a hostage crisis. Tonight, you look like, I don't know, a cat who locked the dog out in the rain. I gave a small, genuine laugh. It felt strange in my throat, and used to that kind of light, easy resonance. That you're not wrong. Brie, I think that I've reached my limit. Dominic leaned forward, elbows on the table. He was a ruthless corporate consultant who'd made his fortune dissecting failing businesses. He'd never hidden his contempt for my husband. Despite his foray into the conglomerate world, I've been telling you for 3 years that man is a parasite. Dominic said, his dark eyes holding mine. He's contributed nothing to Vanguard Logistics except inflated expense reports and a smile only a used car salesman could love. If you're finally deciding to cut the dead weight, he continued, that I have 3 divorce lawyers on speed dial who'd tear him apart for sport. I might not need lawyers. Dom, I murmured, taking another blissful sip of wine. Tristan has a remarkable talent for self-destruction. I'd been propping him up, correcting his mistakes. For so long, I became part of the scaffolding. Tonight, I decided to stop propping anything up. What Dominic and Sabrina didn't know, couldn't possibly understand, was that Tristan's night was currently being consumed by a very literal fire. My hanging up wasn't merely ignoring his tantrum. I'd cut his lifeline. In my previous life, his lie about angry investors was a smokescreen to get the bearer bonds. But the truth I'd uncovered, the autopsy report I'd pried into, was darker, more intricate. Tristan and Camilla weren't just planning to run with my money. They were running from someone. Tristan had quietly leveraged massive, unauthorized loans as collateral. Vanguard's shadow accounts were being used to service a series of catastrophic underground gambling debts. The people he owed weren't legitimate auditors. They were a different kind of collector, ruthless, brutal, and part of a sprawling, illicit syndicate. Tristan had promised them a payout tonight at the penthouse. He promised them the bonds locked in my safe. His entire survival strategy had hinged on manipulating me into bringing that briefcase directly to the hotel lobby. He'd intercept it there, hand it over to save his own skin, and leave me framed for embezzlement while he fled with Camilla. Because I wasn't there, Tristan was now trapped in a luxury suite with a group of very impatient, very dangerous creditors armed with nothing but empty promises and his fading charm. So. What's the emergency, Sabrina asked, pouring herself another glass. Did he accidentally buy another yacht? Fire an executive assistant for looking at him wrong. He claimed that IT was a massive audit crisis. I spun a web of lies, keeping the story close enough to the truth to be satisfying. He wanted me to rush downtown. He used sensitive paper documents to cover up mistakes. Dominic gritted his teeth, his professional instincts instantly kicking in. Valerie, please tell me. I told him you didn't touch those files. If he's cooking the books, I didn't touch anything either. I assured him, reaching past him. He patted his own hand. The documents were safe. The company was secure. Yet, Tristan was in a very deep hole. He stood by the edge of a pit, shovel in hand, wondering where the ladder had gone. As if Q had reminded him, Dominic's smartwatch vibrated. He placed a hand on his wrist. He glanced at it casually, but his expression shifted instantly. The relaxed, chatty, the original calm and composure vanished, replaced by the sharp, calculating gaze of someone who thrived on squeezing profits from corporations. He pulled his smartphone from his breast pocket, tapped the screen, and his eyes scanned quickly. What is it? Sabrina asked, noticing the change in his posture. Dominic didn't answer immediately, continuing to swipe through the screen, his brow slightly furrowed. He frowned, the crease deepening. Val, what exactly did you say Tristan was doing tonight that he said he was in the penthouse suite, the St. Regis? I replied calmly that while entertaining some high-level prospects. Dominic slowly lowered his phone, looking at me with a mix of shock and deep exhaustion. Valerie, are you a psychic? Or did you just plan something terrible that I'd been sitting right here with you, enjoying the lovely Margot? I replied, keeping my tone as innocent as possible. Why? What's happened? Dominic flipped his phone over and slid it across the mahogany table. It was a notification from he used a private local news scanner app to monitor emergency dispatches near the financial district. The screen displayed bright red text, incident at the St. Regis downtown. Multiple units dispatched to penthouse. Reported forced entry. Significant altercation. Possible hostage situation. SWAT on standby. The scanner was buzzing, and Twitter was already exploding. Grainy videos from guests' phones in the lobby showed heavily armed police swarming the elevators. A well-known local journalist tweeted, "Chaos at the St. Regis." Rumors were flying. A prominent local CEO was found badly injured in a suite with an unidentified woman. Drugs and illegal firearms were allegedly seized on site. Sabrina gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. Valerie, oh my God. Tristan is there, that he is indeed there. I agreed, my voice calm and devoid of emotion. A low murmur. I stared at the screen, watching the digital confirmation of his downfall pour in. No bearer bonds. The syndicate had clearly lost patience, waiting for him to buy them back. They hadn't just broken his legs. They'd likely torn the suite apart, searching for the collateral, which drew hotel security, escalating into a full police raid. The gang members probably fled the moment the siren sounded. Tristan, covered in blood and debris, surrounded by the illicit substances he and Camilla so enjoyed. He was finished. The scandal alone would ruin him. Criminal charges would strip him of any remaining dignity. And the sheer abject terror he must be feeling right now, realizing his loyal, gullible wife would never come to save him. It was a beautifully poetic justice, infinitely more satisfying. The vintage wine tasted like water in comparison. Should we get someone? Sabrina stammered, clearly panicked. A lawyer. A hospital. No, I said firmly. I picked up my wine glass and took a long, slow sip. We were going to order the truffle risotto. Tristan had made his own bed. Tonight, I would let him lie in it. The early morning light was cold and indifferent, feeling utterly incongruous with the carnage being reported on every local news channel. I sat in the kitchen of the island house, holding a steaming espresso, watching the plasma screen with calm detachment. A theater critic was reviewing a mediocre tragedy. The Chirin scrolling below was the masterpiece. Pioneer Logistics executive arrested in bloody hotel raid. Illegal substances. Firearms found on site. Security footage played on a loop. It showed Tristan being stretchered out of the St. Regis. A neck brace held him rigid. His usually immaculate blonde hair matted with dark, dried blood. One of his eyes was swollen, completely shut. His designer suit was shredded. Following close behind, Camilla, handcuffed, flanked by two stern-faced police officers, stood next to the paramedics. Her mascara was a wreck. Thick, black streaks ran down her cheeks. Her cocktail dress ruined. She looked terrified, screaming something soundlessly. Thankfully, the news station had muted her. I took a slow, deliberate sip of my espresso. The coffee has never tasted so rich. My phone, which didn't power back on until dawn, showed over 70 missed calls, hundreds of text messages. The senders included Tristan, Camilla, the PR department at Vanguard Group, and Tristan's defense attorney, a sharp-toothed bulldog named I've always despised Harrison. I ignored them all and dialed only one number. Arthur Pendleton, a senior board member at Vanguard Logistics, and my late father's oldest friend. Valerie. My God. Arthur answered on the first ring, his voice trembling with age and shock. Tell me you've seen all this. Tell me you're safe. I am perfectly safe, Arthur, I replied, my tone calm and authoritative. But Tristan has done serious damage to this company. I need an emergency board meeting convened for 9 a.m. We will strip him of his executive position, freeze his corporate accounts, and initiate a full internal audit. I also demand the immediate revocation of his proxy voting rights. Of course, my dear, Arthur stammered, his relief palpable. It's a relief to finally have someone take charge of this hurricane. But what about the police? The public pressure? They say he owes money to the oil group. Valerie, this could tank our stock. It won't, I assured him calmly, because by noon, Vanguard Logistics will officially announce that we have been cooperating with the authorities and have severed all ties with a rogue employee. Have the legal team draft the termination papers. I'll see you in an hour. The board meeting was a masterclass in corporate efficiency. Dominic stood quietly by my side as an external advisor as we surgically dismantled every shred of Tristan's power. The company held the ledgers. I handed the encrypted ledgers, the real ones, completely untouched by Tristan's tampering, to our chief forensic accountant. I watched the board members pale as Dominic projected evidence of Tristan's unauthorized shadow loans onto the screen. By 9:30 a.m. Tristan was officially unemployed, penniless, and facing a mountain of corporate debt on top of the drug and syndicate charges he now faced. Embezzlement. With the company secured, it was time to play the grieving wife. Just past noon, I arrived at Memorial Hospital, accompanied by my newly hired criminal defense attorney. Two uniformed officers stood guard outside room 412. They verified my identity and stepped aside, their eyes filled with unspoken pity. I pushed open the heavy wooden door. The room smelled of antiseptic and the stale sweat of fear. Tristan lay in the hospital bed, tethered to an 4, his right leg encased in a thick cast and suspended in the air. His face was a map of purple and yellow bruises. Camilla was nowhere to be seen. She had been booked and sent directly to the county jail. The last vestige of color drained from Tristan's face as he heard the door click shut. He jerked one eye open. A flicker of desperate, pathetic relief crossed his battered features. "Val," he rasped, his voice a raw, painful scrape. He reached a trembling, bruised hand toward me. "Val, thank God. Where have you been? I called you so many times." I walked slowly to the foot of his bed, making no sound. I stepped forward and took his hand. I simply stood there, looking at him, the person I once loved unconditionally, the one I gave my life for in a past life, now appears small, weak, and repulsive. I said calmly, "I'm in the cellar." My voice held no warmth. Drinking wine with Sabrina and Dominic. It was a lovely evening. Tristan suddenly recoiled his hand as if struck by me. "Snorts, you were drinking." "Valerie," that I was begging for my life. "Those men, they barged in. They had guns that I told you to bring the briefcase. Did I know what you told me?" "Tristan," I replied, tilting my head, "but I also know why you wanted it. You don't need those bearer bonds to appease angry investors. You need them to pay off $500,000 gambling debt owed to the Petrov Group." His good eye widened with pure, unadulterated fear. He tried to sit up, but a wave of agony forced him back onto the pillow. "How do you know that, I know everything?" I whispered, stepping closer to his bedside, leaning in. He bowed his head. Only he could hear me. "That I know about the shadow accounts. I know about the offshore shell companies you set up in my name. Most importantly, I know about Camilla." Tristan choked. His breathing grew ragged, the heart rate monitor by the bed beeping in a frantic, panicked rhythm, its frequency suddenly accelerating. "She was quite chatty on the phone last night." He lied flawlessly, spinning a tale he couldn't possibly refute. "You accidentally dialed my number while you were in the middle of your little pre-flight celebration." I heard everything. "Tristan, is that idiot almost here?" That's what she asked, right before the gang kicked your door in. Scalding, wretched tears traced paths down his bruised cheeks. "Valerie, please, this is pointless." I was desperate. They were going to kill me. "You have to help me. Call Mitchell. Get me bail. Get Camilla bail so she doesn't testify that against me, Mitchell. You are no longer fit for the job." I said coldly, straightening up. "The Vanguard Group board fired you this morning. Your corporate accounts are frozen. Your power of attorney revoked. As for bail, my lawyers have filed for an emergency injunction, freezing our joint marital assets pending a substantial divorce settlement and federal investigation. You can't do this." He rasped, spittle flying from his split lips. "I'm your husband. They're going to put me in prison. The Petrovs will kill me inside. You made your bed." "Tristan," I turned and said, walking to the door, "I highly recommend you get comfortable in it. The next few weeks are going to be a textbook case of systematic dismantling." I didn't just dismantle Tristan's life. I salted the earth so nothing could ever grow there again. The interview with Detective Gallagher, the lead investigator on the organized crime case, was an experience for the ages. Sitting in the cold, gray interrogation room, I played the brilliant, betrayed CEO to perfection. I laid it all out. I showed them the documents I'd secretly gathered. I produced the forged signatures Tristan used to secure the loans. I produced the offshore company paperwork, the account routing numbers. "Mrs. Sterling, excuse me, Valerie," Detective Gallagher said softly, sliding a terrifyingly thick manila folder across the metal table. "We have surveillance footage. Camilla attempted to board a private jet at Teterboro Airport an hour before the raid. Did you know beforehand that they were a flight risk?" "No." I replied, wiping my dry eyes with a tissue. I thought my husband was working overtime to close a merger deal. What a betrayal. Detective, this is truly unbelievable. He wanted to pin it all on me. Well, he failed. Gallagher, he curled his lips into a cold smirk and assured me, thanks to these ledgers, you're completely cleared. However, with just financial fraud, drug trafficking, and ties to criminal organizations, Tristan could face up to 20 years in prison. He'd be lucky to breathe free air again. Camilla was the first to fold. Just as I expected, she's looking at 10 years. She pleaded guilty to aiding embezzlement and drug trafficking. In exchange, she received immunity from more serious charges and testified against Tristan. In a closed-door grand jury hearing, she detailed every one of his illegal activities, his debts, and his plot to frame me. She painted him as a manipulative mastermind, claiming she was just a frightened, coerced victim. The media ate up her testimony. The public tore him apart. 6 months later, as the case was finalized, he was dealt the final blow. Our divorce proceedings mediation took place in a high-security conference room at the federal courthouse. Tristan was escorted in wearing a bright orange jumpsuit. He was wearing a jumpsuit, his hands cuffed to a waist chain. The healing of his physical injuries only accentuated the hollow, melancholic look in his eyes. He had lost at least 30 pounds lighter. The arrogant, charming, yet cold-blooded sociopath who once commanded boardrooms was utterly gone, replaced by someone else. A man, trembling and terrified, sat across from me. I sat opposite him, wearing an expensive custom-tailored suit worth more than his current net worth. Dominic sat to my right, observing the entire process with a deep, quiet satisfaction. Tristan's public defender, an exhausted, overworked man who clearly despised his client, slid the final settlement papers across the table. Since Tristan was a convicted felon and had actively attempted to defraud our marital assets, the judge had ruled overwhelmingly in my favor. I was awarded 100% restitution. We owned Vanguard Logistics, our primary residence, all investment portfolios, and that vintage car. His beloved collection was gone. Tristan was left with nothing but mounting legal debts. Sign, Tristan. My lawyer snapped, tapping the documents with a gold pen. Tristan stared at the paper, his hands shaking violently as he picked up the pen. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading, begging for a mercy he did not deserve. Valerie, he rasped, his voice hoarse, please, just a little money for groceries. My cellmates, everyone in the block, knows who I am. They know about the Petro family. I need protection. I need money. I leaned forward, my hands folded on the polished wooden table, looking directly into his eyes, shedding the mask of the polite, wronged wife for the first time since the night of the car accident that never happened. I let him see the cold, calculating, ghostly stare. I turned my head and asked him, Tristan, do you remember the night of the storm? I whispered, my voice almost drowned out by the hum of the air conditioner. He blinked, confused. The night I was arrested. Yes. I replied, you called me. You said it was an emergency. You begged me to drive through the pouring rain to bring you the bearer bonds. Did I remember? He stammered, glancing nervously at the lawyer. I was desperate. Did I know? I smiled, but it was a chilling, humorless expression that I was sitting in the basement. I watched your call come in. I watched the screen flash. Emergency. I paused, letting the silence stretch, letting the slow dawning of realization spread across his face. I deliberately pressed decline. I sat back. They were drinking the 2012 Chateau Margaux, and I waited for the police radio to broadcast the news of your downfall. Tristan's stand stopped, the sound of breathing. The pen slipped from his fingers and fell heavily onto the table with a crisp clatter, his eyes wide open, utterly horrified. When he finally understood, fear surged through him. I was not lucky, nor was I ignorant. I was the one who started all of this, his destruction. I had held the rope and let him hang himself. He struggling to break free from the chains. You knew. You let them tear me apart. Sign the document. Tristan, I commanded, my voice icy and piercing, that before I decided to divert your food allowance and use it to hire a new security company for the firm. I heard Romanovs, the brothers from the Petrov group, were looking for legitimate consulting work. Tristan nearly choked back a sob. He grabbed the pen, trembling as he wrote his name on the document. Frantic movements, eager to end the meeting, desperate to escape me. The guards helped him up and led him out of the room without a backward glance. I gathered the documents and neatly placed them into my leather briefcase. Stepping out of the room, I was bathed in the bright afternoon sunlight. The air still carried the scent of rain, but the storm had finally passed. I once had my own life, and then I gained a profound and unwavering realization. Sometimes, the best way to win a war is to let the enemy destroy themselves. Story 2. 6 months pregnant. I had a huge argument with Xiao Jingqing and was kicked out of the house. Penniless, I sought warmth in a corner convenience store as I stared blankly at the steam rising from the odin. A store clerk approached me. Hello. We have the last bottle of amnesia, water, left in our shop. Would you like it? I froze, forcing a bitter smile. I don't have any money. She said, and oh need for money. Just something from your body in exchange. I instinctively raised my hand and touched my bulging belly. I said okay. I pushed open the door of the convenience store. A blast of cold wind immediately swept down my neck after taking just a couple of steps. Jingqing's voice rang out from behind me. Chinyu, have you had enough of your tantrum? I turned around and saw him running towards me in great strides. He hadn't even changed his shoes. Still wearing the house slippers with the plush lining. How old are you? Playing the runaway game. You're 6 months pregnant and still so hot-tempered. What if something happened to you out there in the middle of the night? If it were before, I would definitely give him a piece of my mind and we could argue loud enough for the whole street to hear. But today, I just listened in silence, too tired to argue with him. He ranted on, probably because of my unusually quiet demeanor. Instead, his anger gradually subsided and his expression softened. He sighed, then reached out and wrapped his arm around my waist. He pulled me closer into his embrace. All right, it's cold outside. Let's go home. Once home. The warmth of the heating enveloped my body. He crouched down, changed my slippers for me, and looked up at me. Are you hungry? What would you like to eat? I'll cook for you. I shook my head, not hungry. But he frowned. You didn't eat anything out of spite tonight. How could you not be hungry, even if you're not? The child in your stomach still needs to eat. Without waiting for my response, he walked straight into the kitchen. Not long after, he brought out a bowl of seafood noodles with an absurdly generous amount of ingredients. Abalone, sea cucumber, lobster meat. It was piled so high it was almost spilling over, steaming hot. He was a young master-born with a silver spoon in his mouth, his hands never having touched a day of honest work. But ever since I got pregnant, he refused to let me order takeout and wouldn't hire a nanny. Stubbornly, he insisted on personally preparing all my meals. But his cooking skills were really terrible. Seasoning was basically boiled with, at most, a sprinkle of salt. And I had a heavy taste, loving anything spicy that I ess a good. He sat across from me, his eyes fixed on me as he asked. I nodded, picked up a forkful of noodles, and gave a soft hum. The seafood hadn't been cleaned properly, and the strong fishy smell mixed with the bland soup, making me feel queasy. I forced myself to swallow slowly, bite by bite, despite the nausea. Suddenly, his phone let out a sharp ring. There's an urgent matter at the company. As he spoke, he grabbed his coat and car keys. Stay home and don't go out again. With a loud bang, he slammed the door and left. I put down my chopsticks, looking at the bowl of noodles that was still more than half full. My stomach finally couldn't take it anymore and surged with nausea. I rushed into the bathroom and vomited violently into the toilet. After I finished, I leaned against the cold tile wall, tears uncontrollably spilling out. I don't want to live this bland. disgusting life anymore. I immediately pulled out my phone and happily ordered a super spicy malatang and 3 pounds of spicy crayfish. The delivery arrived quickly. I ate with unrestrained enjoyment. This was the most comfortable meal I'd had since being with Zhou Jingjing. After finishing the meal, I lay alone in the spacious double bed, sleeping soundly without any dreams. Zhou Jingjing didn't come home all night, nor did he send a single message. It wasn't until the next morning that he called back, his tone, as usual, commanding that I left an important document in the study. Hurry up and bring it to the Y Resort Hotel. I didn't ask any further questions. After finding the document, I took a taxi to the hotel. At the grand entrance, I was stopped by a security guard that I'm sorry. Ma'am, this is a members-only establishment. You need an internal invitation to enter. I took out my phone and called Zhou Jingjing once, twice. No one answered. In the cold wind, I wrapped my down jacket tightly around me, waiting for nearly an hour. Only when my feet started to go numb did I see Assistant Chin of Zhou Jingjing rushing out from inside. Madam, I'm so sorry. So sorry. The president is in a meeting. He apologized repeatedly, bringing me to a large villa. They said Zhou Jingjing would be working here for the next few days. As soon as Zhou Jingjing saw me, his eyebrows furrowed tightly. I asked you to deliver a document. Why are you taking so long? Can't even handle such a small task. I arrived early, but I couldn't get in at the door, and I called you many times. I tried to explain. He wouldn't listen, impatiently cutting me off. Enough. Stop making excuses. With your abilities, you still think you can work outside. You can't even deliver documents properly. What else can you do? It felt like a needle piercing my heart. I had mentioned many times before that I wanted to continue working, but he had always refused. I, Zhou Jingjing, don't need a woman to go out and make a public spectacle of herself for money. Just enjoy your life at home. I took a deep breath and suppressed my emotions. The documents have been delivered. I'll head back if there's nothing else. What's the rush? His tone softened slightly. Wait in the office. I'll take you out to eat after the meeting. Before I could refuse, he was already surrounded by a group of people heading towards the conference room. Chinju led me to the office. As soon as the door was pushed open, the office looked like a beauty pageant. 7 or 8 young and beautiful girls sat behind their desks, each with impeccable makeup and stylish outfits. Zhou Jingjing has 2 hard and fast rules when hiring female secretaries. First, they must be beautiful. Second, they must be under the age of 25. The outside world jokingly refers to his team of secretaries as the Zhou Beauty Squad. I walked among them in my bulky down jacket, looking like a penguin that had mistakenly wandered into a swan lake. I plopped down on the sofa without a care. The curious gazes of the secretaries stuck to me like glue. I heard their hushed but clear whispers. Who is that? A new face wearing an extremely short pencil skirt, her eyes fixedly examining me. She nudged Chinju, asking in a coquettish voice, Chinju, who is this? Chinju replied softly that it's Mrs. Zhou. The young secretary's eyes widened instantly, her voice rising slightly in surprised Mrs. Zhou. Is she a celebrity? Why is she so well hidden? Chinju shook his head. No, she's not. The little secretary pursed her lips with a sour, sarcastic tone. Oh, not a celebrity, not a celebrity, yet wearing a hat and mask. So pretentious. Afraid someone might recognize you. The girl next to her gently tugged at her sleeve. She, however, didn't seem to care at all. Her eyes brazenly scanned me once more, her voice dripping with malice. I ess it because she's not very pretty. And look at her figure. So fat, like a barrel. I lowered my eyes. The thick down jacket couldn't conceal my bloated, misshapen figure after getting pregnant. My weight changed daily, and all my curves disappeared. As for why I wore a mask and hat, it was because of Zhou Jingjing. He said he had made many enemies in business to protect me, fearing I would be targeted. Chinju reprimanded her in a low voice that don't speak nonsense. Mr. Zhou deeply loves his wife. Show some respect. The young secretary pursed her lips, unimpressed, and rolled her eyes. I waved calmly at her to go. Get me a cup of coffee. Zhou Jingqin came out after the meeting. He immediately noticed the coffee in front of me, and his brows furrowed instantly. Who poured the coffee for you? The young secretary immediately stood up, eager to take credit. Mr. Zhou, I poured it for Madam. Zhou Jingqin's gaze suddenly swept toward her, and he sternly rebuked her. Dump it. The smug look on the young secretary's face instantly froze. She tremblingly stepped forward, her hand shaking, and almost spilled the coffee as she carried it away. What's wrong with you? Zhao Jingjing turned to look at me, his tone full of reproach. Can you even drink coffee now? Do I have to remind you of such common sense over and over again? How old are you? Is she immature? Or are you too immature? The entire secretary area outside was silent, and all the girls kept their heads down, afraid of angering him. My heart was twisted painfully by his words. I swallowed the sourness in my throat, tugged at his sleeve, and broke the suffocating silence, speaking softly. I'm hungry. He frowned, took out his phone, and ordered hotel room service to deliver a nutritious meal to the room. The meal was quickly delivered. The presentation was exquisite, the ingredients top-notch, light and healthy, perfectly meeting his requirements. He didn't sit down to join me. Take your time eating. I have a team dinner downstairs in the courtyard. I walked out to the balcony overlooking the courtyard. I saw what he called his team dinner by the long buffet table. His gorgeous secretary squad surrounded him, all dressed to impress, smiling charmingly. He held a wine glass with an air of nonchalance. His other hand naturally rested on the back of the chair beside his secretary. He exuded the aura of an emperor, surrounded and revered. The secretary, in turn, was his favorite concubine. Memories suddenly flashed back to a few years ago. Back then, when we had just gotten married, I had been jealous of his overly glamorous secretary team and had demanded he replace them. He laughed at my pettiness, saying that secretaries were the face of the company, and urged me to be sensible and not act out. He cupped my face in his hands and promised, swearing that body and soul, I would be the only one for him for the rest of his life. Over the years, he indeed seemed to have never really been involved in any scandalous rumors with anyone. But at this moment, in the courtyard downstairs, the young secretary in the mini skirt giggled, picked up a grape, and held it to his lips without hesitation. He lowered his head and ate it very naturally. My nasal passages felt as if they were being blocked by that grape, making it suddenly difficult to breathe. Then, the young secretary stood up as if intending to go to the nearby swing. Accidentally, her leg gave way, letting out a startled cry. She fell right into Zhao Jingqing's embrace. Zhao Jingqing's hand naturally steadied her waist as he joked with a smile that I told you to lose weight. And now you can't even walk steadily. As he spoke, he picked up the young secretary and carried her a few steps to the swing, gently placing her on it. My eyes stung painfully at the sight. I clenched the cold phone in my hand with all my strength. With a sudden force, I hurled it down toward the glaring laughter and chatter below. Plop! The phone crashed heavily into the center of the heated pool in the courtyard, sending a huge splash of water flying. The playful laughter below came to an abrupt halt. Everyone was startled by the sudden noise, their frightened eyes looking up. Zhao Jingqing also looked up, his gaze accurately finding me on the balcony. From a great distance, our eyes met. I clung to the balcony railing, screaming at the blurred figure with all my might. Zhao Jingqing, get your ass up here. Zhao Jingqing arrived quickly. He pushed open the door, his face ashen. I grabbed the pillow beside me and hurled it at him with all my strength. He didn't dodge, and the pillow softly hit his body. His eyes were dark and brooding. What are you making a scene about now? I pointed to the healthy meal on the table in front of me, Why do you get to eat barbecue and drink alcohol while I'm stuck with this stuff? He said coldly, Chinyu, use some common sense. You're pregnant, and the doctor said you need a light diet. It's all for your own good. Once the baby is born, you can eat whatever you want. Will that do? Another child. For the sake of the child, how much more must I sacrifice? Moreover, I don't even like children. It was his stubbornness that led him to replace my birth control pills. And that's how I ended up pregnant. He walked over, picked up his chopsticks, and scooped up a piece of boiled spinach to feed me. His tone softened as if coaxing a disobedient child. Ah, open your mouth. I abruptly turned my face away, dodging the spinach, and tears welled up unbidden. Child, child, all you care about is the child. Is it because I'm carrying this child that I don't even have the freedom to eat? I'm a living person, not your baby-making machine. Zhao Jingjing's face darkened completely, and he slammed his chopsticks down forcefully. You're going to be a mother soon. Can't you stop being so willful and unreasonable? He sat down beside me and forcefully turned my shoulder toward him. Be good. Stop making a fuss. Just endure for 4 more months. And once the baby is born, everything will be fine. After having this child, we won't have any more. He picked up the bowl again, scooped a spoonful of rice, and held it to my lips. His gaze was stubborn, as if he wouldn't give up until I finished every bite. Unable to resist, I opened my mouth and mechanically swallowed the tasteless food. And so, he fed me spoon by spoon, almost forcefully, until the meal was done. So obedient, finally satisfied, he raised his hand to pat my head, but I instinctively dodged. His hand froze in midair, his eyes darkening. A cautious knock came from the door outside. The previous little secretary pushed the door open and poked half her body in. She held a plate of bright red hawthorn berries. Madame Zhao. These are freshly air-flown hawthorn berries, sweet and sour, perfect for stimulating the appetite. Would you like to try some? Zhou Jingjing stood up and took the plate of hawthorn berries. Thank you for your hard work. He paused, glanced at the young secretary, and instructed that I'll be going for a media interview later. You stay here and take good care of the madam. The young secretary's smile froze, but she didn't dare to argue, pouting as she agreed. All right. Mr. Zhou. Zhou Jingjing strode out of the room with long, confident steps. The young secretary was clearly impatient, pacing back and forth in the room. Every now and then, she glanced toward the door, her mind already at the press conference. You don't need to stay here. Go attend to your own business. I spoke up, wanting to send her away. That won't do. She immediately refused. President Zhou instructed me to follow you every step of the way. I must obey President Zhou's orders. My chest tightened with irritation. Rather than staying alone with her in this suffocating room, it's better to go outside. Then let's go. I stood up. Let's go watch the interview together. The secretary's eyes lit up immediately, and she hurried to follow. The interview was taking place in the hotel's largest banquet hall. When we arrived, the room was already packed with media reporters, their cameras and microphones all aimed at the dazzling man on the stage. Zhou Jingjing sat confidently on the stage, answering reporters' questions with wit and humor, eliciting occasional laughter from the audience. A female reporter stood up and asked a question. Mr. Zhou, congratulations on your continued reign as the most popular entrepreneur this year. We've noticed that many of your fans are young women, and everyone is very curious about your relationship status. Are you married? I subconsciously clenched my hands. On stage, Zhou Jingjing faced the camera with a decisive tone. No. The young secretary beside me let out a barely audible scoff. TSK. So, they weren't even married after all. What's the point of pretending to be Mrs. Zhao? Yeah, I'm not Mrs. Zhao. I never registered my marriage with Zhao Jingqing, nor did we have a wedding back then. He told me that the marital status of a listed company's CEO must be disclosed for my safety and to avoid being targeted by his competitors. We couldn't get married for the time being. I believed it. The reporter pressed further. So, Mr. Zhao, are you currently single? On stage, Zhao Jingqing's smile remained unchanged. He spoke clearly into the microphone. Yes. My head exploded with a loud boom. The secretary beside me could barely hide the glee and mockery on her face. All the blood in my body seemed to freeze in an instant. Everything went black before my eyes. My vision began to blur, and everything around me spun and twisted. Panic screams erupted around me. Someone's fainted. There's so much blood. Before my consciousness completely sank into darkness, it seemed as if I heard Zhao Jingqing's voice filled with a terrifying panic, calling out from a distance, "Wife." I woke up in the pungent smell of disinfectant. Zhao Jingqing sat by the hospital bed. His expensive suit was wrinkled beyond recognition. His trousers were stained with large patches of dried dark blood. One hand tightly gripped mine while the other supported his forehead with his eyes closed. His brows furrowed and dark circles heavily shadowed his eyes. It seems he stayed here all night. He seemed to sense my movements and suddenly woke up. Seeing that my eyes were open, he immediately leaned in, his eyes bloodshot. His voice was terribly hoarse, awake. "Honey, is there anywhere that still hurts? Headache? Stomachache?" I didn't answer his question. I just struggled to lift my other hand and touch my abdomen. There. It was empty. Where's the baby? Zhao Jingqing's eyes turned red and tears gathered in his eyes. He lowered his head, his shoulders trembling slightly. "Gone. My wife. Our child is gone." He felt as if he had lost his most cherished treasure. The pain unbearable. I closed my eyes, and the scalding tears slid from the corners of my eyes, quickly disappearing into my temples. He lifted his head, his face pressed against mine. Why, I was already so careful, so attentive. He choked back tears. Maybe it's because I ate too many hawthorn berries, which promote blood circulation. It's all my fault. I didn't know that couldn't be eaten. I shouldn't have let her bring it in. Listening to his belated repentance, a sharp pain throbbed in my temples. My head hurts. I interrupted him weakly. "Shut up." He immediately fell silent, his eyes red, looking at me helplessly. After a while, he managed to compose himself, speaking in the tone he thought would be comforting. "Honey, don't be too sad. We're still young. The child, I'm not the least bit sad." I opened my eyes and calmly interrupted him. He froze, as if he hadn't expected me to say that. "It's okay. We'll have more children once you're better. Next time. I don't want to have any more." I looked into his eyes and repeated it clearly. His mouth opened and then closed again, as if he hadn't understood what I said. He looked at me with a complicated expression. I knew what he was thinking. He was a man of deeply traditional, even conservative, nature. His ideal life was one with a loving wife, well-behaved children, and a harmonious family. When he first found out she was pregnant, he was so excited that he acted like a giddy young man, personally overseeing the decoration of 2 children's rooms. One room was painted sky blue, filled with toy cars and dinosaurs, while the other was painted pink, overflowing with Barbie dolls and stuffed animals. He held me then, his tone filled with a satisfaction unlike any before. "Whether it's a boy or a girl, we'll have just this one. We'll pour all our love into it." Now, those 2 meticulously prepared children's rooms would never welcome their intended occupants. This miscarriage was just an accident. "Next time, I'll be even more careful. Take better care of you." He tried to persuade me. "I don't want children anymore." I repeated for the 3rd time. Zhao Jingqing looked at me, his eyes gradually growing still, turning murky and inscrutable. He looked at me, his eyes bloodshot. After a long while, his voice was hoarse, almost inaudible. "All right, as you wish, child. We won't take it." He paused, as if making a tremendous decision. "When you're discharged from the hospital, I'll get a vasectomy. I won't let you suffer anymore." I forcefully pulled my hand out of his grasp, turned over, and faced away from him. "I'm tired. I want to sleep for a while. You can leave now." A faint sob escaped from his throat. All right, I won't disturb you. He stood up and tucked the blanket around me. Get some rest. I'll go home and bring you some clean clothes. I stayed in the hospital for 3 days. Zhao Jingqing always felt that I hadn't fully recovered and wanted me to stay longer, but I couldn't stand the smell of disinfectant any longer. So I insisted on checking out of the hospital, returning to that spacious, cold home. A thought suddenly surged within me. I want to go back to my hometown for a while. My hometown is a quiet coastal city. Zhao Jingqing didn't hesitate. Sure, wait until I finish this acquisition case, and I'll accompany you back. Consider it a break. You don't need to accompany me. I'll go back alone to clear my mind. His expression stiffened, and he carefully observed my face. Honey, are you angry with me? Do you feel like I didn't take good care of you and the child? I curled the corner of my mouth. No, don't overthink it. After a moment of silence, I continued. Also, I want to buy a house in my hometown. Great. He immediately agreed, as if eager to make amends for something. I'll arrange it. You can choose anywhere you like. The next day, he had everything settled. A luxurious oceanfront apartment in a prime location, and the keys were handed directly to me. The property deed was in my name alone. Next, he transferred a substantial sum into my account through a complex overseas account. The SMS notification sounded, and I stared at the long string of numbers. Stunned, he explained in a hoarse voice, his smile bitter and forlorn. Originally, it was for the child's education fund and support expenses, but it won't be needed anymore. Take it. Spend it however you like. He spoke, a tear tracing a path down the corner of his eye. I stared at the cold transfer notification on my phone screen. Suddenly, my eyes felt scorched, burning hot. I gazed at the man before me, now so much more haggard, and asked softly, Zhao Jingqing, can you accompany me for a hot pot meal just once? Inside the hot pot restaurant, the spicy aroma mingled with the steam wafted towards us. Boss, do you have any private rooms available? I asked while wearing a mask. The busy boss didn't even lift his head, gone long ago. You have to wait in line, but there's still one empty spot in the lobby. Zhao Jingqing grabbed my hand and said, the lobby will do. It's fine. I looked at him in surprise. When we used to go out together, he never allowed us to sit in the main hall. He would always frown and say it was too noisy and chaotic, with poor privacy, insisting that we had to have the best private room. This time, I shook my head. No, let's wait for a private room. I sidestepped his touch, that it's quieter with fewer people. His face was too recognizable, and I didn't want to be photographed by anyone at this moment. After waiting for over an hour, I finally got a cramped private room. The red oil pot soon bubbled vigorously, turning with dense clusters of chili peppers and Sichuan peppercorns. Zhao Jingqing had only taken a few bites when fine beads of sweat began to form on his forehead. I sucked in air from the spiciness, chugging down an entire bottle of ice water in one go. How about switching to a yin-yang pot? You can eat from the clear broth side. Seeing his flustered state, I suggested, no need. He refused quickly, then picked up another forkful of beef slices and dropped them into the spicy broth. I need to practice. I can't always have you accommodating me with plain soup. The spicy steam made my eyes moist. I accidentally inhaled a mouthful of spicy oil, coughing violently and forcing tears out. Zhao Jingqing immediately put down his chopsticks and anxiously handed me water, gently patting my back. Slow down. Have some water to help it go down. He didn't eat much, his thin lips already swollen and red from the spice, like they were stained with blood. Just as I was lowering a piece of tripe into the pot, he suddenly spoke. I'm going on a business trip tomorrow. When I get back, let's go get our marriage certificate. My chopsticks, holding the tripe, paused midair. He was in high spirits. I had a master calculated. Next Thursday is an auspicious day, the last good day of the year. As he spoke, he opened his phone to show me. The phone screen displayed a stunningly exquisite design of a wedding gown. After we register, we'll hold the wedding. I've already had them order a custom gown from Italy. Take a look at this design. Do you like it? He gazed at me, his eyes gleaming with excitement, like a child eager to show off a prized possession. The tripe slowly curled and stiffened in the sizzling red oil. I asked softly, "Didn't you say before that to protect me? We couldn't register our marriage or have a wedding." The excitement on Zhou Jing Chen's face froze. There was fierce infighting within the group, and several projects were hanging in the balance. I had too many enemies, and I was afraid they would target you. But once this acquisition is completed, no one will be able to shake me. I have the ability to protect you well. He tightened his grip on my hand. I know I've made you suffer a lot in the past. It won't happen again. I want you to stand by my side openly. Let everyone know that you are the only Mrs. Zhou. Jing Chen. The overcooked tripe sank into the rolling red oil and disappeared in an instant. Next Thursday. All right. I stared at the pot, my voice light and airy. Zhou Jing Chen grinned from ear to ear. He eagerly pushed his phone closer to my face, pressing further. Do you like this wedding dress? I glanced at the luxurious wedding dress on the screen and nodded indifferently. It's quite nice. Then I'll have them speed up the process immediately. He pocketed his phone and swiftly typed out instructions with his fingers. What about the wedding? Where do you want to have it? Bali, Maldives, or the European castle you mentioned before? I'll arrange it. I lowered my eyes and bit hard on the crisp, dried mustard greens in my mouth, mumbling indistinctly, "Let's eat first. We can talk about this later." Zhou Jing Chen's high spirits were somewhat dampened by my cold response. He solemnly put away his phone, but didn't stop his day dreaming, continuing to plan on his own. I think Bali and the Maldives are both great options, with their sunny beaches. European castles could also be added to the list to consider slowly. The wedding should ideally be held in spring or autumn, not too cold or too hot, so you'll be comfortable in your wedding dress. He spoke enthusiastically about his future plans, every detail meticulously considered. I didn't listen to a single word. When we settled the bill after the meal, the friendly owner gifted us a pair of festive red couple's cups. Looking at those cups, a thought suddenly struck me, and I remembered something very important that I had forgotten. By the way, when I was at your company last time, I think I lost an earring. I want to go look for it. Zhao Jingqing didn't suspect anything and wrapped his arm around my waist as we walked out. All right, I also need to go back to the company to pick up some documents. The Zhao Corporation building was still brightly lit against the night sky. I walked straight to Zhao Jingqing's desk and pretended to search through it. Found it? He asked, walking over with a file in hand. I shook my head. No, maybe I remembered the wrong place. My gaze fell on the branded mug on his desk, featuring the logo of a renowned designer, Zhao Jingqing. Where is the cup I gave you before? It was something I secretly made at a pottery studio for our 4th anniversary. A pair of adorably ugly couple's cups, one with a majestic little tiger, the bottom inscribed with his name, and the other with a squirrel hugging a pine cone, inscribed with my name. I remember giving him the tiger cup, but he insisted on taking the squirrel cup that was meant for me. This one looks like you. I want this one. That way, every time I drink water, I'll think of you. Zhao Jingqing paused for a moment, then seemed to recall something. Oh, you mean that handmade cup? Lu Yuyan liked it, so she swapped it with me for this master edition. Lu Yuyan, the little secretary who had given me hawthorn, openly mocked me in the office and fell into his arms. Turns out, he never fired her. A cold fury instantly surged to the top of my head. I clenched my fists, my body trembling with rage. That's my cup. My voice suddenly rose, sharp enough to pierce the silence of the office, make her return it immediately. My voice was too loud, reaching the secretary's office. The office door was pushed open and Lu Yinin poked his head in, holding the familiar little squirrel cup in his hand. His face wore an innocent yet triumphant expression. Mr. Zhao, madam, are you referring to this cup? I dashed over abruptly, reaching out to snatch the cup back. Lu Yinin seemed startled by my sudden movement, let out a gasp, and accidentally jerked her wrist. Clang! The cup slammed onto the floor, shattering into pieces in an instant, shards flying everywhere. Lu Yinin covered her mouth, a layer of mist quickly forming in her eyes. Her voice was delicate and pitiful, brimming with genuine grievance. Da-da. I'm sorry, Mrs. Zhao. It wasn't on purpose. I looked at the shattered pieces on the ground, especially since the bottom of the cup was completely broken, unable to be pieced back together. I felt an inexplicable sense of relief. Before I could even speak, Zhao Jingqing suddenly exploded, like a tiger whose tail had been stepped on. He roared harshly at Lu Yinin, who was standing frozen at the door. Are you useless? Can't even hold a cup properly. His voice was filled with undisguised rage and heartache, as if the cup was some priceless treasure. I was startled by his overreaction. Zhao Jingqing abruptly crouched down, his fingers trembling as he reached for the sharp shards of broken porcelain, piece by piece, carefully, as if still hoping to piece it back together. Lu Yinin was completely stunned, her face as pale as paper, probably never having seen Zhao Jingqing so furious with her before. Mr. Zhao. I shut up. Zhao Jingqing didn't even look up, his tone icy. The edge of the broken porcelain was sharp, and he accidentally cut his finger. Blood droplets immediately welled up and fell onto the white porcelain, strikingly vivid. I stepped forward, grabbing his wrist. Don't pick it up. He stubbornly tried to pull away. No, you made this. I kept a straight face, my heart unmoved, even feeling a bit amused. You didn't cherish it when it was whole, but now that it's broken, you're putting on a show of deep affection. He suddenly looked up at me, his eyes filled with shock and deep hurt, had no interest in appreciating his expression, and impatiently urged him on. Go wash and bandage your hands. I'm tired and need to rest. Only then did he reluctantly let go, slowly standing up. All right, sit and wait for me for a moment. I'll be quick. As he passed by Lu Yamian, who was pale as a ghost, he didn't stop, only leaving behind a cold remark. You're fired. Hand over all your work by the end of the day. Then get out of the company. Don't ever let me see you again. Lu Yumian's legs went weak and she nearly collapsed to the ground. But this time, Zhou Jingjing didn't even spare her a glance, let alone reach out to help her. She finally steadied herself by holding onto the table. I didn't look at her again, turning instead to the assistant beside me. Please call the cleaning Annette to come and thoroughly clean up this pile of trash. I stood by, watching as the Annette swept up the last bits of debris into the trash can. Ensure there are no omissions. Then I said to Assistant Chen, I've separated from Zhou Jingqing. Don't mention me in front of him anymore. Assistant Chen's face flashed with immense surprise, but her professional demeanor allowed her to quickly manage her expression. Just hesitated and nodded. All right, Mrs. Zhou. She paused, as if realizing this form of address was no longer appropriate, and tried to think of another way to address me. But in the end, she couldn't bring herself to say anything. She probably never even knew my name. Zhou Jingqing returned quickly, his finger merely wrapped in a casual band-aid, the blood stains not yet fully wiped clean. Wife, let's go home. His tone carried an urgency as he reached out to take my hand. I hummed in acknowledgement, slipping my hands into my pockets. When he got home, he started packing for his business trip tomorrow. I went to take a shower and then went to bed, sleeping a deeply peaceful sleep. The next morning, Zhou Jingqing had already prepared breakfast and was holding a pour-over kettle, ready to make coffee. I walked over and gently pressed my hand on his. Stop drinking coffee. I took out the bottle of forgetfulness water from my bag, which looked no different from ordinary mineral water, and handed it to him. Drink this instead. I bought it especially for you. A wave of obvious gratitude instantly welled up in Zhou Jingqing's eyes. He had never refused anything I gave him. This time was no exception, not even asking what it was. He took it, twisted off the cap, and drank it all down in one go. After finishing, he He wiped his mouth and even smiled at me. What kind of water is this? It has a rather unique taste. I looked at him and gave a genuine, relaxed smile. I'm glad you like it. When I saw him to the door, he leaned in instinctively, wanting to kiss me. I slightly turned my head and the kiss landed on my cheek. He didn't pay much attention, pulling the suitcase with a light-hearted tone. Wife, wait for me to come back. I stood inside the door, looking into his eyes, and said calmly, Zhou Jingqing, goodbye. After Zhou Jingqing left, I cleaned up all traces of myself from the house as quickly as possible. Clothes, skincare products, books I had read, the bowl and chopsticks I often used in the kitchen. I cleaned with extraordinary thoroughness. Not even a single strand of hair was left behind. All belongings were packed into boxes and sent to a distant coastal town. As the last box was carried away by the delivery man, I stood in the empty and cold living room, looking around. There was no trace left of my existence here. The winter in my hometown was warm. Even in December, the temperature hovered around 20 degrees. The sea breeze, tinged with the scent of the ocean, felt wonderfully soothing against my skin. I ran a small cat cafe. The cats in my shop were all well-groomed with shiny coats, and their affectionate natures quickly earned them a reputation among the young crowd, bringing in good business. One lazy afternoon, with the sun so warm it made me drowsy, I dozed off in the sofa by the window, cradling a ragdoll cat in my arms. The sunlight made both me and the cat feel warm and cozy. The doorbell chimed crisply, welcome. I looked up to greet the guest. In that instant, recognizing the person approaching, my body stiffened, and my arms instinctively tightened around the cat. It was Xiao Jingchen. He had lost a lot of weight, his cheeks slightly sunken, and his complexion unnaturally pale. His brow carried a heavy weariness and a haggard look. He walked towards me. I was tense all over, my fingers unconsciously gripping the soft fur of the cat in my arms. The cat let out a few uncomfortable meows and twisted its body. Xiao Jingchen stopped in front of me, his gaze falling on the cat in my arms. His gaze at me was distant, as if looking at a stranger he had never met before. Yet beneath that unfamiliarity, there was a struggle, a hint of confusion and bewilderment. Excuse me, he began, his voice hoarse. Are you selling the cat in your hands? The detachment and unfamiliarity in his tone were so genuine. My heart sank back into place. The forgetfulness elixir had indeed taken effect, and I'm sorry. I heard my own voice, calm yet unfamiliar. This one is not for sale. He insisted that I really like it, no matter the price, tens of thousands or even hundreds of thousands. Just name your price. I shook my head, my tone firm, not for any price. A clear trace of disappointment flickered across Xiao Jingjing's face. He seemed somewhat puzzled by his own persistence, murmuring softly, sorry. I just saw it in the window outside and felt a strong sense of familiarity. It's hard on my heart, as if I've forgotten something very important. I froze for a moment. Before I got pregnant, I had a very beautiful ragdoll cat named Coco. As soon as I found out I was pregnant, Xiao Jingjing used the excuse, pregnant women shouldn't be around pets, to ignore my protests and tears. While I wasn't paying attention, he secretly gave Coco away. After leaving, I went through many channels and finally managed to find Coco again. Ragdoll cats all look similar, I said, turning my head to avoid his confused gaze. You can take a look at the other cats in the shop. He didn't look at the other cats. Instead, he just shook his head dejectedly, like a lost child, and slowly turned to leave. The next day, I encountered him again at the corner of the street in front of the shop. He had completely forgotten about meeting me yesterday. His brows furrowed as he stared at the map on his phone. Seeing me, he grabbed onto me like a lifeline. Hello. Could you tell me how to get to Time Cafe? I acted like a genuinely helpful stranger, pointing him in the right direction. Turn left at the next intersection, and it's about 100 m ahead. Okay. Thank you. He thanked me and hurried away. Time Cafe. It was a small shop I had mentioned to him by chance long ago. Saying its name was very pleasing. The convenience store clerk was right. Those who drink the water of forgetfulness will completely forget. Even if we meet again, no memories will remain. He truly, completely forgot me. That's wonderful. Later, I saw news about him in a financial news report. The Y Resort Hotel he successfully acquired and renovated had its grand opening. Renamed as the Weizhou Resort Hotel, the reporter interviewed him at the opening ceremony to Mr. Joe, is there any special meaning behind the name of the hotel? In front of the camera, Zhou Jinqing wore a well-tailored suit, but his smile had an almost imperceptible emptiness. Wei Zhou is the name I gave to my child. This hotel is a gift from me to my child. Qin Wei Zhou. That was the name he had spent days poring over dictionaries to come up with when we first found out I was pregnant. He said it could work for either a boy or a girl. The reporter, clearly having done their homework, teased Mr. Joe, you're not even married, let alone in a relationship, yet you've already thought of a name for your future child. Zhou Jincheng's brows suddenly furrowed tightly, as if he had heard something extremely absurd, and his tone carried a strong displeasure, who said, I'm not married. I am married. I have a wife. I have children. The reporter was stunned, instinctively retorting, but a month ago, during our exclusive interview, you clearly stated that you were single and unmarried. Zhou Jincheng seemed to be struck hard in the head by these words, his face turning pale in an instant. He clutched his forehead in pain, his body swaying slightly. His eyes grew chaotic and frantic, muttering to himself, No, I have a wife. I clearly have a wife. He abruptly raised his head, looking around at the crowd like a trapped, desperate beast. He cried out in anguish, Wife, wife. In the stunned silence of everyone watching, he suddenly bolted toward the hotel's heated swimming pool and leaped into it. He had nearly drowned as a child, leaving him with a deep psychological fear of water, and he couldn't swim at all. Chin, the assistant, panicked and jumped in after him to save him, but Zhou Jincheng pushed her away frantically, thrashing and struggling in the water, stubbornly shouting into the air, his voice breaking and faltering, Wife, where are you? Why haven't you come to save me yet? Through the cold screen of my phone, I watched him helplessly sinking into the azure pool. I thought of our first meeting. It was in a body of water like this one, where he had jumped into the sea in despair after his parents' deaths. It was I who jumped down and saved him. He fell in love with me because of this, obsessively pulling me into his world. Wife, you saved me, and I love you, but his love was not the kind I wanted. This tangled, ill-fated relationship began with water, and now it ends with water. In the second before sinking completely beneath the surface, his scream transmitted his heart-wrenching final scream, his last ounce of strength spent. Wife. Later, I heard bits and pieces of rumors about him. They said that the young CEO of the Zhou Group had developed a severe case of hysteria. He no longer managed the company, but instead wandered aimlessly to places he and his wife had once visited, grabbing anyone he met and asking them in a daze, Where is my wife? Have you seen my wife? After hearing the two stories above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Looking forward to hearing from you. If you liked this story, don't forget to like it, share it, and subscribe to my channel. See you next time.